Welcome back to On to the Next Thing. Today is, what is it? August 1st. First of the month, August 1st, 2026. I'm your host, Michael, and today we're going to be, shying away once again from actual contemporary film and media, and we're going to be going back to one of my favorite topics, 20th century literature and whack-ass movies. All right? This time we're going to go to two different flavors of 60s sentimentality. We're going to go over Field of Dreams, a movie that I thought was a lot more popular and a lot better received than it actually was. And A Prayer for Owen Meany, a much, much stranger story set in actually a very similar time period. 1980s frame story, 1950s through 60s actual story. Crazy stuff. But before we do that, we got to get into bird news. I didn't have it set up yet. All right, I know I had a couple tabs open, but we're gonna Google first. Get off the David Berkowitz tab and go to bird news. What we got here? First Australian mass mortality event suspected as deadly bird flu virus. Oh my god, bird flu. Oh my god. Bird figurines. Okay, let's do that. We'll do that from Smithsonian Magazine. Let's see if they have that without paywalls. Archaeologists discovered two thumbnail-sized bird sculptures carved from mammoth ivory 40,000 years ago. Measuring less than an inch long, the figurines were buried beneath Germany's Hohle Fels cave, where some of the world's oldest known figurative artworks have been found. This was written by Ellen Wexler. Trying to make a Better Call Saul joke, but don't actually remember. Oh, Kathleen Wexler? Nah, I don't remember. I don't remember what the Wexler's name was. Okay. Approximately 40,000 years ago, not long after Homo sapiens arrived in Europe, a group of early humans settled in a cave in present-day Germany. Among these residents were artists who used mammoth ivory to carve two tiny bird sculptures. The delicate figures spent the millennia that followed buried in a layer of prehistoric sediment. Now, archaeologists have recovered the artwork, becoming the first to set eyes on them in tens of thousands of years. Weighing just a fraction of an ounce each, the figurines measure less than an inch long, about the size of a thumbnail. One depicts a bird with its wings spread, though fragments of its body have been lost. The other, which was found intact, God damn it, I don't want fucking Apple Music. The other, which was found intact, appears to be lying down, perhaps tending to its eggs. The carvings are not highly stylized, but instead include many specific and unique features. Nicholas Cunard, an archaeologist at the University of Tübingen in Germany, says in a statement, quote, "Here the artist has recorded detailed observations that allow us to consider what kind of bird is represented and what the bird could be doing. The artwork features carefully crafted details such as distinctive eyes and markings representing feathers. Experts think that one of them may be a ptarmigan, a bird in the grouse family. They're less certain of the other's identity, though it may be another ptarmigan or bird of prey. The two objects remain around the same time, and researchers say they could have been carved by the same artist. During excavations in 2025, they were found about 5 feet from each other at the Hohle Fels cave in southwestern Germany. Hohle Fels is one of 6 caves in the Swabia-Jura region that are part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Sorry, I've never heard of that region in my life. Beginning in the 1860s, excavations in the area revealed artifacts dating to between 33,000 and 43,000 years ago, including animal figurines and early musical instruments. According to UNESCO, these items are, quote, some of the oldest figurative art worldwide. That's pretty cool. I'll just have to swipe past this ad about K-cups. The two bird figurines were found in layers from the Aurignacian period, which is associated with some of the earliest known modern human sculptures in Europe. This cave has revealed many other artifacts, including early bone flutes and the Venus of Hohle Fels, one of the oldest surviving examples of a figurative art depicting a human. About 25 years ago, researchers uncovered another bird figurine. Okay, so this is barely news, but it is technically bird news. Let's keep going. Kennard tells Nature's Ewan Callaway that artifacts of this kind may suggest a level of cognitive acuity that helped early humans thrive in Europe during the Ice Age, when other groups, such as Neanderthals, disappeared. All right, disappeared is a bit of a loaded phrase, but we'll move past that. In the future, the researcher would like to investigate these ideas by analyzing ancient DNA from the cave sediments. A figurine with its wings spread is the smallest Ice Age artwork found in the region, according to Schwäbische Zeitung's Christoph Schneider. Other artworks dating to this period typically measure between 1 and 4 inches long. Both bird artifacts are now on display at the Museum of Prehistory, Blaubeeren. Okay, I don't know that one. I learned a little bit of German back in school, but Blaubeeren? Blaubeeren. Does that mean blueberry land? Kind of seems like it. When the researchers presented their discovery there earlier this week, Kennard noted that 3 bird sculptures have been found at Hohle Fels, while nearby sites have only revealed figurines depicting other animals, per Schwäbische Zeitung. This discrepancy suggests that communities at different sites created artworks that focused on specific subjects. For reasons unknown, the residents of Hohle Fels may have had a penchant for birds. The purpose of the figurines served is also a mystery. According to the statement, the researchers wonder whether they were personal talismans or symbols associated with their owner's identity. Daniel Adler, a Paleolithic archaeologist at the University of Connecticut who wasn't involved in the research, theorizes that they may have been linked to group affiliation. As he tells Nature, these objects were created with a purpose other than simple enjoyment. Yeah, the scientists never like to label things as simple enjoyment. Why can't I just like things, man? Why can't I just enjoy shit? Stupid scientists. Kennard's team has been investigating Hohle Fels for nearly 30 years. The researchers conduct excavations by carefully removing sediment before... Okay, I don't give a shit. They sift through the sediment. You see the figurine, you feel the humanity of it all. Okay, great. That was the last thing. Okay, last quote. You see this figurine and you feel the humanity of it all, she tells Nature. No one has seen these things for 40,000 years, and we are the first ones to do it. It's a privilege. Great. I might like these other things. No, I won't. Back to bird news. Any other headlines here? Anchorage. There was one that was pretty good. Thought I had it saved. Nope, you stupid goddamn piece of shit fucking replaceable phone. What's this? Gen Z's birdwatch. Gen Z. Guys, we have another one about Gen Z. I forgot about this one. Okay, this is from CNN, my favorite source for learning about my generation. This is by Jack Bantock from July 28th, so a few days ago. 7-minute read, nice and quick, perfect. Few people anywhere love birds more than Lyra Valencia, or Lyra perhaps, merely glimpsing the azure blue flash of a kingfisher flitting around her beloved corner of South London is enough to risk making her late for any engagement that day. And yet it's a passion nested upon a barefaced lie. So fucking dramatic. Exasperated, like so many students, by the miserly state of the job market after graduating university during the pandemic, Valencia spotted a rare opening to put her zoology degree to good use in the field. A position with it. Fuck you, Invesco, you piece of shit goddamn ad. Fuck you. She spotted a rare opening to put her zoology degree to good use in the field. A position with a bird charity in sunny Malta. The problem? Eyeing London's prodigious pigeon population marked the broad extent of her birdwatching pedigree. Then why did you get a zoology degree if you didn't even get any experience in the field? What the fuck? How'd you even get one? Stupid London. Go on a fucking trip. One pair of secondhand binoculars, a few trips around her local parks, and a fib about her true level of birding experience later. Yes. All right. Hey, guys, quick aside. Always lie. Always do a little white lie, because you can figure out, there's certain stuff that you can figure out. You'll know it when you hear it. But if you're pretty sure you can figure out bird watching, you can just say that you know how to do bird watching. Okay. After the fib, she was taking flight to the Mediterranean. Quote, in my early 20s, if someone told me that I would be a bird watcher, I'd laugh. Ha ha ha! Because it's just not something I ever thought of growing up, Valencia 30 told CNN. Okay, so she's 30, she's doing this. I'm not 100% sure if you want to go down this route, but this is England, so it may be possibly the best possible career path that you could get in England without putting a bullet in your head. All right, quote, obviously it started off as a lie, but then it actually started to really rub off on me. That's the thing with it. Once you start, you really can't stop. All right, I'm going to do the accent for the rest of the article, okay? Now, having returned to London, she is a nature content creator, known to her followers as Outside of Lyra, and symbolic of a bona fide bird-watching boom among the UK's Gen Z. Almost 750,000 people aged between 16 and 29 now regularly enjoy birdwatching across Great Britain, according to data shared in May by the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, RSPB, marking a 1,088% increase since 2018. The figure is taken from an 8-year study of more than 24,000 people, led by market research firm 55 Blue, found that only jewelry making was a faster-growing hobby among the age group. The UK is so fucked. I'm sorry, guys. It's so fucking done. It's an uptake outpacing the overall 47% increase in UK birdwatching to over 4 million people, with millennials and Gen X participation rising by 216 and 66% since 2018, respectively. The influx of young birders has not gone unnoticed by RSPB wildlife advisor Katie Nethercoat, an expert on the myriad avian species that dot the charity's network of 200-plus nature reserves. I've definitely had my algorithm throw me some really lovely content of young people going out to nature reserves, even just noticing a nesting moorhen in London, or coots on the back of a little slow boat, Nethercoat told CNN. Quote, in this age of worry about the world, it's always a really nice positive takeaway that there is that spark of passion there. Hey, you know what? I can't take that away from you, Miss Nethercoat. Puffins and Pokemon. All right, let's do this, CNN. From ever-present house sparrows to the puffins that venture across the Atlantic to nest on Yorkshire's Bempton Cliffs each summer, 636 bird species have been recorded in Britain, according to the most recent count by the British Ornithologists Union. There is so much diversity, so many different types of species, said Valencia. They're different. I hate to say Pokemon characters, but really Pokemon characters. Okay. I now know what type of person this woman is, and her standing in my mind has gone down a couple pegs. Let's just say that. They all live different lives, and to those Jesus. And although to some people they all sound and look the same, once you start learning, it's a different world. Jesus, the British mind is truly fascinating. Valencia's insight gives a clue into explaining just why so many youngsters are taking up a hobby primarily associated with an opposite demographic, older, retired people with time and money to burn. However reluctant the Pokemon comparison, it holds weight. The Japanese franchise rocketed in popularity in 2016 thanks to the roaring success of Pokemon Go, an app. Oh my god, dude. We all know what fucking Pokemon Go is. Bird-watching apps have been capitalized by leaning into the very same principles, some more explicitly than others. Launched in January, self-described Pokemon Go for Birds app, BirdX, gamifies birding, with each species spotted becoming virtual collectible cards that can be leveled up by further sightings and completed quests. Yet the high flyer of the scene is undoubtedly Merlin, a free bird identification app developed by Cornell University's Lab of Ornithology. Hey, I've told you guys about Merlin before, I think. It was pretty good. It was in another article. Photos and even audio, akin to a Shazam for birds, can be used to pinpoint one of 11,000 species among the eBird database, a crowdsourced project also run by the New York-based Research Institute. Other apps offer similar features, but none can rival Merlin's popularity. It has amassed 40 million downloads since launching in 2014, while 2 billion observations spanning every country in the world have been logged on eBird, the lab's executive producer Ian Owens announced last year, citing a 40% and 70% rise in American and European Merlin usage, respectively, in spring 2025. What a sentence. I almost ran out of breath. I think I might need to go to the doctor for that. Intuitive for a tech-savvy generation, such apps also serve to dispel the assumption that birdwatching is a pricey pursuit, argues Nethercoat, as well as providing a way into what could otherwise be an overwhelming hobby for newcomers. Quote, apps are such really good, easy, and accessible... Damn. Apps are such a really good, easy, and accessible way for people to actually think, I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk. I'm just curious as to what I can hear, Nethercoat said. People have an idea that birdwatching is an expensive hobby. It's not. You don't need all the gear. It's often just going to your local park, sitting out on your balcony or in your garden, going for a walk along the river. Nature is always there. Flying offline. Though attesting to the popularity of apps, Valencia has an alternative, seemingly paradoxical theory as to why birders are getting younger, a yearning for less screen time among a generation that has grown up on phones. That's a pretty good theory, Miss Nethercoat. For me, personally, our brains are For me, personally, our brains are fried. And as a narrator here, I mean ours. All right, because I'm fucking fried right now, too. I think we're just so done and exhausted with social media, she said, referencing a resurgence in popularity of film cameras, MP3 players, and other more analog devices. It's very toxic. It's weird because it doesn't make us feel good. We feel almost addicted to being on our phones because we don't know anything else. A lot of us are going back, seeking the slower life, seeking a real connection with nature and other people. Birdwatching is a brilliant way for all the people to do that. It's the only thing I know today that has the ability to slow me down, slow my thoughts, and almost completely shut my thoughts off, she added. I'm just in that moment watching birds, observing the birds, and wanting to know what it is. It's really grounding. That's why I like it. It's a big distraction. Perfect. Less than a year into quitting her job as a wildlife ranger in London to go full-time as an online content creator and influencer, Valencia is acutely aware of the irony in her stance. Yet it is a discomfort she embraces, dreaming of a future where birders feel confident enough to enjoy the hobby without a reliance on technology. For me, the end goal, and maybe this is far-fetched, not in my lifetime, is for future generations to live in a world where nature and people live in harmony. Valencia, who spends many of her evenings tending to a Croydon community garden she co-founded, explained. But then it's so weird because the way I'm doing that and the way I'm trying to explain that message is through my phone, through Instagram and apps, and these things are not known to be beneficial for nature or people's mental health. If I could click my fingers, we'd all be off our phones, living in a way where we're more connected to nature, Valencia adds. But obviously, we live in this world. Ooh. It's a world where a growing number of bird species are at risk of extinction. Data published last October by the International Union for Conservation of Nature found 61% of bird species are in decline globally, up from 44% in 2016. Habitat loss and degradation, driven particularly by agriculture and logging, were cited as key contributing factors. Love that depressing context, CNN. Bring it on home. While 34 UK bird species have shown long-term increases over the last 3 decades, 43 have shown long-term declines, according to the most recent breeding bird survey published in April and co-organized by the RSPB. Willow tit and marsh tit populations have dropped by 92% and 53% respectively across the period, the headlines of a wider trend that is a source for everyday worry for Nevercoat. We unfortunately have seen a huge decline of birds, she said. Even just looking at the UK, we are literally one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. Well, no shit, that's the UK. Hey, everyone, audience here, mostly Americans, UK, terrible. Don't go there. Yet Nethercoat takes hope from an upcoming generation falling for birdwatching, a hobby that she believes can serve as a pathway to an emotional investment in the conservation status of birds and the wider environment. Quote, birdwatching is often people's first step into noticing what's around them because they are everywhere and they also nest alongside us, she said. That can spark this real connection with people because they're like, oh my god, a robin is nesting in a plant pot by my front door. I'm going to watch it build its nest to watch it raise its chick. That sounded kind of like mocking, but I think in her case it was earnest. It really is a good ignition for people's passions, which only grows around the natural world. Great stuff. All right, that was good. Good bird news today. All right, let's get into our main topics here. Oh, by the way, if there's one takeaway from that, for those of you in the U.S., the more important country that speaks English, what you want to do is, if you're interested in the bird watching culture and you really want to see some crazy people on both ends of the extremes of bird watching, like really high tech crazy people and then like really super casual people, watch Listers, which is this it's this documentary on YouTube by these two like stoner brothers who drive across the country and they try and like keep up with all the professional birders doing like this big annual bird watching competition, and they're trying to like record the most bird sightings. And they interview a bunch of people, and they kind of like go into these different theories about why the bird watching community is the way it is, and it's pretty fun, and it has great cinematography and a lot of birds. So if you're at all fans of the bird news, then I would go and watch Listers. If I could get those guys on the podcast, that would be so sweet, but I'm too much of a wuss to go and reach out to them as of yet. Mostly because I can't really bring any viewers in on my own, so why would they want to interview with me? Who knows? But let's see where we can go from there. All right, main topic. Let's do this. Sentimentality for the 60s. Right? So, listen, I know I'm pretty far removed from the 60s. I get it. I wasn't there. It was probably really cool. There was a lot of really interesting stuff going on in music and culture and politics and stuff like that. But the retrospectives done on the 60s, especially the ones coming out of like the late 80s, it's like some of them, like they have this quality of being very well made and often well constructed, but just oh my god, the opinions about the 60s and the pining for like how things were is so tiresome. And these are like two pieces of media from the 1980s. I think they were written in the same or published in the same year. Yeah, I think it was so Field of Dreams, right? The 1990 or the 1989 movie about fucking baseball ghosts. And then A Prayer for Owen Meany, a novel about shit. I don't even know. I'm going to have to explain it a little bit. They're both published in 1989. Yeah, so it's that same type of 80s era of like having kind of flashbacks to the 60s and like trying to figure out what it all means, because by the time the 80s had come around, that was like Reagan era. So everyone was like, man, we did all these protests and we smoked all that weed and we made all that cool music. And for what? It was just this fucking buttoned up old crazy cowboy loser from the fucking movies that my parents watch now is coming around and is the president now. Like, what was it all even for, man? And that's kind of the you get two kind of reactions to that very well thought out question. Field of Dreams is like, it was all worth it. The 60s were really good, and we helped people, and it was great. And things are all better now, and we can look forward to the future, except also we're going to just find endless solace in the past, which is like not a super good message to me. But then the prayer for Owen Meany is like, damn, I wish this one guy from my past would come back. And also everything sucks now. Like it's in a prayer for Owen Meany, it's a good book. It's not like totally depressing, but the outlook on the 60s nostalgia is a lot more bleak than in Field of Dreams. And we'll do the optimistic one first. Field of Dreams, just do a little overview of it and my thoughts. So it was directed by Phil Alden Robinson, who's a guy who's really he's kind of only directed Field of Dreams, some fucking comedy, quote unquote, called Sneakers, and then The Sum of All Fears, which is like so he does, all right, I get what he does now. He does adaptations. His two more famous movies, Field of Dreams and Sum of All Fears, are adaptations of popular 20th century authors. Field of Dreams was based on a book by based on the book Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella, some Canadian guy. And then the other one, Sum of All Fears, was based on a Tom Clancy novel of the same name, right? So that's kind of his thing, I guess, mostly just because I don't really know that much else about his movies. I haven't seen any of them except for Field of Dreams, which I decided to watch on a whim because it was about to leave Netflix, and I was like, I haven't seen Field of Dreams before. And I used to hear all these references about it when I was a kid. That must mean that it's really, really good. And I watched it, and I feel like somehow I got a childhood that kind of incidentally had more Field of Dreams references than the average childhood. Like, I know that old PBS though, or I guess it's not even that old, Arthur, where it's like the aardvark kid and all his little animal middle schooler friends going to school and shit. And I think they had like a Field of Dreams like referenced episode in there. Different parodies I've seen have involved Field of Dreams. I think The Simpsons had one, and The Simpsons had to have had one. Like, they started around that same time, so they definitely had it at some point. But possibly in one of their Treehouse of Horror episodes as well. And there was this like scary short story in like a book of children's scary stories. And I keep forgetting the collection, but it was pretty cool. And it was called Field of Nightmares. And it was basically about just like sort of a similar concept, except these kids, except it's not really like it at all, because these kids just go to like a closed baseball field and then like accidentally do a ritual and summon a bunch of monsters that they have to play a game of baseball against. Otherwise, the monsters get to eat them. And if they win, they get to go home. And then the story just ends there. I was reading some crazy shit back in the day. I gotta try and remember what those books were called, because they weren't scary stories to tell in the dark. They were a little bit more modern and a little bit more elaborate and kind of diverse in setting. But yeah, I kind of thought that Field of Dreams was like more of a cultural phenomenon than I thought, but I think it kind of got like stomped out with kind of the wave of more, like especially with the wave of 80s nostalgia that started coming around in the 2010s, and then like now the 90s nostalgia and the early 2000s nostalgia, and so it kind of got buried anyway because it's like 60s. Like, okay, now who in the young people are remembering the 60s right now? So I think that was part of it. And I think the other part of it is it's really not that good of a movie. It's kind of cheesy, and Roger Ebert or Roger Ebert. He gave it a good review where he was like, "Man, this sentimentality stuff, it usually sucks, but this time it works." And I would argue I already have kind of a past beef with Roger Ebert. God damn it. What the fuck? Hang on. I got to look at reception to see how Roger Ebert. This fucking old fuck. No, that's mean. R.I.P. But yeah, he was like, oh yeah, and this one the sentimentality works, and I'm sorry, I have to disagree. It's just not that good. Like it's well made, and the actors all seem very earnest. It has Kevin Costner, it has Ray Liotta, and James Earl Jones coming off of like was it Fences? I think was the one. I mean, he's coming off of like Broadway and shit like that. And he took some time to do this and play like a civil rights era author who no longer has any civil rights era opinions, and at first seems very cynical about how like none of the hippies actually did anything, but then comes around to it and is like, man, I just really love baseball, and I really love being young, and I actually really liked the 60s. It was really nice, and I really like baseball. And it kind of just like, it kind of glosses through this whole thing where it's like the 60s were like, the past is great and the 60s were cool, and it's still good to have like 60s liberal hippie politics, even though it doesn't really do anything. Maybe on a small scale, like just person to person, it'll do something. Like Kevin Costner's wife, they're at like a school board meeting, and this one woman is trying to ban James Earl Jones's book, and Kevin Costner's wife is like, she's still like a hippie now. She's like a 40-year-old hippie, which is so cool. But yeah, she comes up and starts like yelling at this woman and calls her like a fascist and stuff, and is like, yeah, this is good, and this is like the Martin Luther King and the blah 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 blah, and just goes on and on and on. And even Kevin Costner's kind of embarrassed, but he like goes along with it because he's like, yeah, man, the 60s. They talk a lot about the 60s. I got really sick of hearing about the 60s while watching this movie. But, you know, in the end, it does make you sad because it makes you think about your dad and playing baseball. And, you know, if you had a dad and you played catch with your dad, this movie will probably make you feel a little something because you're like, man, I miss playing catch with my dad. And that's about it. And that's kind of what a lot of people referenced in why they like the movie, where it's like, yeah, man, I miss playing catch with my dad. I think even like RFK or someone like that, some like very strange person was like, yeah, no, I really liked it because, I just really like it because it's my favorite. Oh, George Bush. Yeah, some strange guy, former president of the United States, George W. Bush. Yeah, he really liked it because he liked playing catch with his dad. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a good reason to like a movie. But yeah, its whole message is basically just like, hey, man, it's actually really good just to dwell on the past and live in the past and hang out with people there. Like, all the ghosts are there. You just got to go hang out with them. And it's like, damn, dude, they're ghosts, you know? You got to look forward sometimes. Like Kevin Costner, you have a farm to run. You have kids. And the way it works out in the end, I'm sorry to spoil it because I'm not going to recommend this movie. The way it works out in the end is spoilers if you actually want to watch this and don't want to hear the spoilers. The way it works out is he opens up the baseball field to other people who are sensitive to their nostalgia and who want to see the ghosts. And the end of the movie is just like a giant line of people for miles driving into, I guess, come watch the ghosts play baseball, just because they've like somehow heard about it or just like felt a calling. And in that way, it feels like kind of like one of those Stephen King style plot cop-outs where it's just like, oh, this character had a feeling. They had a really strong feeling, and so they're going this way. It's like The Shining. Except that actually makes sense because it's like an established psychic power that you can feel drawn to certain things if someone else's shine is strong enough or whatever. These are just random people coming in because they like feel the baseball ghosts of their pasts and they want to watch it play baseball. And it's basically it's a sappy movie about like, you know, America, baseball, apple pie, and that's what we're about, and that's what's still good, and we're still doing good out here. And the James Earl Jones, the old author guy, walks into the cornfield with the ghosts, and so I guess he's dead. And that's the fucking movie. I really didn't like this. I wasn't a big fan of it at all. It was goofy and it got tiring, and I didn't really want to. I just ended up finishing it just because I wanted to see how it ended, because I hadn't heard anyone talk about Field of Dreams in probably 15, 20 years. And so it's like, for me, it was like, hey, let's see what all the hype was about before all the 60s nostalgia just got eclipsed by 80s and 90s nostalgia. But yeah, that's the type of thing. Sentimentality. It's like too sickly sweet for me. But hey, baseball with my dad, that it plucked my heartstring a little bit, but it's like, that's a cheap shot. Okay, that's a cheap shot for everybody, because everybody's got a dad somehow, And honestly, the less time you had with your dad, or the more that you miss your dad, or the less your dad was in your life, the more it probably hurts watching the movie. And so it's like, that to me is an emotional cheap shot. Just saying, that's my opinion. You can attack me for it later. That's all I got to say about that. Now on to the weirder, very much weirder, but also better story. And that's A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is a novel. I don't think it's been developed into a movie yet, and I don't think they ever will, because it's a very strange plot that I think would have worked fine if it was a movie made in the 80s, but like, modern studios now are not going to make this shit, I don't think. But it's a very well-written story. John Irving is... they talk about his other contemporaries, like... actually, the guy who wrote The Overstory is a contemporary of this guy originally. And also William Volman, who I'm going to talk about later on in a future episode, as I'm reading one of his big-ass crazy fucking books. But John Irving, he's a good author. Culturally, he's considered a good literary author. Then A Prayer for Owen Meany was kind of a weird one for me, because it was a book that was gifted to me by a friend when I was like 23, so that would be a few years ago. And he got it for my birthday, and I was like, hey, it meant a lot to me. And I didn't know that, so first I read off the back cover, right? And so here's what's on the back cover. Quote, "I am doomed to remember a boy with a wrecked voice, not because of his voice, or because he was the smallest person I ever knew, or even because he was the instrument of my mother's death, but because he is the reason I believe in God. I am a Christian because of Owen Meany." Now, here's the thing, right? So, 23 years old, not particularly religious, still not religious now, but a little bit more interested in philosophy and theology and stuff like that, just because it's a good way to expand your brain. But back then, I really wasn't into it. So I was like, why? So I was like to my friend, I was like, this is like a joke book, right? You got this for me because it's funny, right? And he was like, no, this is actually like this actually meant a lot to me. And I was like, oh, okay, damn, yeah, sure, I'll read it. And it sat on my shelf for about 3 years, right? So, but I finally decided to pick it up because I was kind of in between books, and I was like, all right, what's something I haven't read yet here on my shelf? And I was like, oh, A Prayer for Owen Meany. Let's just go for it here. All right, let's do it. And so here's the plot. Here's another reading from the back of the cover. In the summer of 1953, two 11-year-old boys, best friends, are playing in a Little League baseball game in Gravesend, New Hampshire. One of the boys hits a foul ball that kills the other boy's mother. Blunt as fuck, this book is. The boy who hits the ball doesn't believe in accidents. Owen Meany believes he is God's instrument. What happens to Owen after that 1953 foul ball is extraordinary. And now, so I felt like, based on that back of the cover summary, that this was going to be like Christian literature, where it's like, in the end, everyone like converts because there's like a full-on miracle from God, and it's like, oh, everyone needs to become a Christian, everyone needs to go to church. But it's actually not really like that at all. And I was fascinated to find that it is definitely a little bit more of a black comedy, and had a lot more irony in it than I expected out of a book called A Prayer for Owen Meany. It's definitely interesting. There's a lot of little like plot threads. because there's a couple questions, right? There's questions like, hey, is Owen Meany actually God's instrument? What's wrong with his voice? He's a weird little guy. Was he made this way for a reason? Or is it just like nothing? Who is the main character's dad? Because the main character, although I would argue the main character is Owen Meany, but there is a narrator, and his name is John Wheelwright, and he's definitely like kind of like the author's like alter ego, kind of. I hope he's like an alter ego. I hope he's not just like a stand-in for the author, because John Wheelwright is like a whiny, he's a whiny piece of shit. Like, he's a whiny little fucking virgin creepo. He's a 40-year-old version by the 1980s, where his like, you know, his adult self is, and he's just like a literature teacher at like a girls' school, and he's a like, he's just this weird virgin dude who just is just constantly bitching about Reagan and like the politics of the time and like modern culture and stuff. And so I'm really hoping it's kind of like an ironic caricature of the author, because the author did grow up in New Hampshire in an affluent family, and lived near the the Phillips Exeter Academy that the Gravesend Academy is based on in the book, and that's where these two boys go. John gets to go just because he comes from like a prominent family in the town, while Owen Meany goes because he's kind of a genius. And so Owen Meany is like, I really wish that the whole book was just Owen Meany and we could just cut out the parts with John altogether. But I guess kind of the point, and I got a little help from this from like some people who had reviewed the book on like Goodreads and Reddit and shit like that. But John's kind of there to like, he's expressing kind of his grief at his own inadequacy, and his grief at eventually, spoiler alert, losing his friend. And how that happens is a very important part of the book. So I'm not going to get into that, because it will fucking flip your shit. Like, and the only issue I have with this book, other than John Wheelwright being possibly intentionally annoying, but possibly also just like kind of the author's insecurities as well, is the fact that it's like 600 pages long. And with the amount of plot and the amount of actual, revelations and events that happen, this book does not, to me, really need to be 600 pages. However, what that does give it is very good world building. And so as someone else who kind of grew up in the New England area, it was kind of interesting to read a story that is from like, basically not exactly where I grew up, but like pretty close to the area where I grew up. And so it was very interesting. It was like just kind of hearing like basically just like a story of someone who had like my childhood, but like 50 years before. And so in that way, it was kind of interesting. And it didn't totally like sugarcoat everything, but the fact that John fucking Gravesend, what's his name? John Wheelwright, he just whines so much about like, oh, modern politics. This country used to be good. This country used to have morality. Has this country just been taken over by bad people? And it's like, hey, dum-dum, this country's always been run by bad people. That's why it's the richest and most powerful country in the world. Stupid. But, I can't say that in the book, and John Irving's like 85 years old, so I'm not going to bother him with that, right? But, so that part is annoying, but the actual plot is interesting, and the setting is kind of like, it feels a little bit like how Stephen King will really set you into a town, and you really feel like the town, and you can visualize it. And I get that's what a lot of the pages here are. And so if you hate that sort of thing, you just want action, you're not going to get it. That's not what this is. It's a lot about the setting and like kind of who the characters are and little things and actions and like kind of stuff that they say that gives you insights about who the characters are and what they are. But instead of giving out plot points here, of which there are relatively few, here's some facts and figures that I wrote down about Owen Meany versus John. First, I need to take a little beverage break here. Okay. Owen Meany versus John Wheelwright. Here's the notes that I put down here. I'm so fucking smart. Main narrator is John Wheelwright. Here's my bullet points. He sucks. He tries to fuck his cousin. Or no, he wants to fuck his cousin. I crossed out tries. He doesn't make an attempt. He's too much of a wimp to even do the incest route that he really wants to do. And he blames this on his father that he's never met for making him want to have lust or something like that. And that complex kind of feeds into why he becomes a 40-year-old virgin. And here's that next part. Bullet point, no game, 40-year-old virgin. Bullet point, constantly bitches about Reagan. Bullet point, gets at morality of country without mentioning race or class, of course. And bullet point, basically just misses Owen. Yeah. All right, so that's John. And once again, you don't get to really, like, the way that Owen Meany leaves this book is you're gonna flip shit. I'll tell you, if you pay attention through the whole book, you're gonna be like, oh damn, it's gonna be cool. That's why, it would have been a good movie if they had kind of jumped on it in the 90s, because they still could have gotten away with a weird movie like that in the 90s, where the main narrator is a weird virgin guy who wants to have sex with his female cousin because his cousin's really promiscuous. And yeah, basically, that's the other part. There's probably at least 80 pages in this book describing how promiscuous this dude's cousin Hester is. And Hester eventually, this isn't really relevant to the story, so I'll tell you, Hester eventually becomes like a rock star who goes by the moniker Hester the Molester, which is her fucking punitive nickname from her shitty older brothers when she was a kid. And so she decided that she wanted that to be on her record label, which I guess is kind of more of a humorous exaggeration of kind of the sex and rock and roll lifestyle of the 80s. So I guess it's that's a little bit more satire rather than oh, this is what I actually think that rock and roll is. Or at least, once again, I hope that it's satire, because otherwise John Irving has some fucking issues. But yeah, I think it's more satire type of thing, but absolutely crazy that she went with that, and absolutely crazy that John still definitely wants to bang her. And that she talks about the game that her brothers forced her to play, where she ended up having to kiss John, which is just, it's gross. I know I'm not selling this book very well, but when you get past the gross bits and you use your hatred and your disgust towards John to fuel what you want to happen, it's much better. All right, here's what I got. Here's what I got for Owen. Bullet point. Bullet point, little dude. Bullet point, slays puss. This part is true, right? Because not only do girls like him, he's the only one who eventually gets with Hester originally, and she ends up loving him. And so it's really sad when when what happens to him happens, and so that's why she ends up just becoming a fucking free love fucking crazy rock woman, I guess. Bullet point, working class background. Bullet point, scrappy. Bullet point, interesting religious philosophy. And it is interesting because he's supposed to be in this book kind of he's not even a prodigy, because he's actually pretty smart with everything, but he's especially smart with literature and religious texts. And so I guess he's kind of actually a stand-in for the smart part of the author, John Irving's actual intellect. Because Owen is he has these very interesting ideas about how God works, and how it's you're not supposed to be able to see a miracle, you're not supposed to actually see a tornado of fire. It's a metaphor for kind of what actually happened. But there still was a miracle, but it's something that you have to believe in. It's not something that you're necessarily going to perceive, which is a weird thing. And then he also believes in predestination, which is why he's damn, God took a hold of my hands, because I had no intention of killing John Wheelwright's mom with a foul ball, which, by the way, and first thing said in the entire fucking book. And so it's That's not even a spoiler. That is the tip of the fucking iceberg. That this little dude, Owen Meany, never could hit a fucking home run to save his life, but just one time hits a foul ball hard enough that it soars down and kills John Wheelwright's mother, his best friend's mom. It's so fucked up and bizarre, and that's what kind of hooks you in initially. But yeah, see, he believes he's God's instrument. He believes he's predestined to do something important for God or for the greater good or whatever. And that's kind of like his baseline philosophy. And there is some other kind of twists about like why he thinks that, but you know, at his core, that's like a big reason for it. Anyway, bullet point. Yeah, believes in predestination, sets his whole belief system. Yeah, okay. And then, okay, other bullet points I had for the book in general was plot is good, the flash forwards are ass and kind of repetitive. And that's true. They are pretty repetitive. They kind of go over the same stuff like, oh, Reagan, oh, these clowns, oh, these bad people taking over America. Remember when America was cool and fucking nice stuff happened? We liked when nice stuff happened. It's like, yeah, okay, dude. We all liked when nice stuff happened. Bullet point, not sure where author ends or narrator begins. I've been kind of already figuring this out a little bit better. It definitely seems like he's more of an like John Wheelwright is definitely more of like a exaggeration of the author's kind of perceived shortcomings and that sort of thing. Because the author is like married, like he's not an 80-year-old virgin, like he's okay. So it's definitely just kind of like the type of like insecurity and you know, kind of like desire for certainty in a world that's kind of fucked up. And his anchor for certainty was Owen, because Owen was smart and always knew what to do and that sort of thing. Bullet point feels like kind of absurd parallel world like Stephen King. And yeah, this is definitely Stephen King-like, where there's the world building where it's like this world is not quite the world that we live in, but it's one that's similar enough where you can really visualize it, and so you can really see all the shit that happens and kind of get a feel for the setting and the time and all of that. And that's something that I think is done really well in this book. Similar to kind of how Stephen King does it. And there's actually, on this paperback version, there's a quote from Stephen King on the front. Extraordinary, so original, and so enriching. Except it wasn't actually original. It was actually based on like a German novel that John Irving read, and he kind of like readapted it. So, sorry, Stephen, you're stupid. Fuck you. Fuck you, Stephen King. Readers will come to the end feeling sorry to leave Irving's richly textured and carefully wrought world. Okay, yeah. He said that in the Washington Post, Stephen King did. Okay. But yeah, I think overall that book, it's different. It's a lot different than other pieces of media that are sentimental about the past in the 60s, because it's like, you know, the character John Wheelwright, he wants to go back, kind of, but that's just because his friend is there, and it's like, you know, it's really more that he hates the U.S. and he hates the past because of like what happened to Owen, and not because he's like, oh man, I smoked so much weed and it was so cool and we were really doing something there. Like, he's actually quite critical of that, almost too critical. Because he's a little white rich boy and so doesn't really understand or care anything about race or class and doesn't really think about things that way. He just thinks of things in pure kind of like Northeast Episcopalian morality, Christian morality type shit. Yeah, type shit. But yeah, this is all probably somewhat intentional, but also I don't think that John Irving is someone... I'd have to read more of his books to see if any of them are kind of similar or different, or if he talks more about class and issues like that in other ones of his novels. But in this one, it's a little lacking in anything kind of substantial politically. I think that all the political stuff is mostly like, you know, probably some genuine dislike for Reagan's policies, because he was a bastard, certainly. But I think a lot of it is kind of just to show his grief for Owen, and it's like, it just kind of sucks that it's such an annoying dude who's talking about it, because it's like, man, I don't want to hear about your fucking boring ass life where you fucking hitchhike onto other people's family vacations, like your coworker's family, and you go and hang out with them all summer. And it's like, get the fuck out of there. Go quit fucking harping on your your loss of your friend from 25 years ago, and go and get yourself some bitches. All right, that's what I have to say to Jonathan Wheelwright there. All right, or even just one, because you're a Christian man. You're an Anglican now because you're up in Canada, and so you just need to get one lady. All right, and just lock that shit down like the real John Irving did. Okay, that's all I can say about that. But yeah, the actual plot of the book is interesting. You know, the different reveals and stuff about like people's pasts and things like that are pretty cool. It's just a lot of the characters are kind of gross in different ways. You know, you got Hester and John are kind of gross. Even John's mom is kind of like, it's kind of weird. He keeps describing her breasts and stuff, and he describes her like, oh, she's like a cat. She's like a cat that can like curl up to you. And it's like, dude, you're fucking gross, man. Don't talk about your mom that way. All right. Don't stop talking about how she was the hottest woman in fucking Gravesend. All right. Number one, that can't be saying that much, but also like, it's still fucking gross. Just stop talking about it. Just say that Owen had a crush on your mom. All right. You don't have to have a crush on your mom just because Owen had a crush on your mom. Oh, holy shit. Was that another aspect of the story that John is just constantly copying Owen? Damn, did I just have another revelation about this book? See, that's why you got to read stuff like this, like thick-ass books that are like, oh, that's really literary. But at least with this one, it has a beginning and an end. The time jumps are pretty distinctive because you can tell when it's happening, since John, the narrator, gets really political about Reagan and starts just bitching and moaning about how he gets no woman and how he hates the students and how he hates America, lives in Canada, and everyone keeps telling him to shut the fuck up about American politics because he lives in Canada now. So it's like you can tell when the time jumps happen. It's not too confusing. You know, if you're a fucking beginner reader, if you're on like level 5 chapter books, you might have some trouble with it. But other than that, if you're used to reading some real books, like you'll probably like this one to an extent. It's gonna slog a little bit. There's definitely a lot of slow bits, but you'll get through them. You probably won't miss that much by reading it quick. But if you pay attention enough, it's a pretty satisfying ending and a satisfying conclusion, if not a satisfying close to all of the character arcs, except for Owen's. Spoiler alert, Owen's pretty awesome. He's basically the main character, but there's a different narrator because you need that for the story. Fucking 7 out of 10. I don't normally do rankings out of 10. Maybe I'll do an episode where I just go over all the books that I've previously reviewed in this podcast, and I'll rank them out of 10. This one's definitely a 7 out of 10. Like it feels 7 out of 10, legitimately. And I hope you all feel the same way. We can just do a quick rundown of the music that I've been listening to lately. Let's just pull up my liked list here on Spotify. 2 hours. Okay, get that shit out of there. I don't care about that. Boo, boo, boo. Shut up. I gotta get ready for a fucking party soon, guys, because guess what? I got friends, all right? I got shit to do. It's a crazy life right now. Let's go to liked songs here. What's the shit that I've been listening to? Man, my phone is burning out. Ugh, this is ass. Come on, go to my songs. Oh, you bastard. You suck. Yeah, this phone is crapping out on me. It's a Samsung A53 from 2022. It's no longer up to the quality expected for a modern phone. And also I've let it bake in the sun too much for my job, so it's definitely fried on the inside. I don't think the coolant works very well. I've been listening to Oasis. I've been listening to Talking Heads. I added songs by Boris is one that I've talked about before. Toke. Ethel Caine. I don't exactly know. I feel like Ethel Caine is someone more famous than I would be letting on. I heard one of her songs on an Instagram reel and I decided that I liked it. Faetooth. is like kind of a symphonic black metal band. Chat Pile I've mentioned before, hardcore sludge, like kind of alternative metal, good stuff. Talks a lot about how awful Oklahoma is and how bad America is. Mannequin Pussy, that's a classic, or not classic. They're like a more modern punk band they're pretty good. Temples is one that I think they have a song called I Want to Be Your Mirror, but they have a more recent song called Jetstream Heart that I also like. The band called Nothing, which is kind of like, they're like kind of a shoegazy, heavy shoegaze type band. Creedence Clearwater Revival, and then there's also a lot of metal bands, Tomb Mold, Armor, Quicksand. There's the folk rock duo Hey Nothing. They're quite cool. They're interesting, based out of New England. They make some good stuff. Cool and the Gang, I don't actually know what that is. Stop Drop Rewind, I don't remember. I think these were ones from Instagram or possibly from like a Discover Weekly or something. Title Fight, Slint is like, they're like one of the precursors to math rock and things like that. They're kind of like a progressive, like kind of grunge alternative rock group from like the late 80s, early 90s. Very influential on grunge bands and math rock and some like kind of emo stuff. Very, very good band, Slint. Another one, Oakwood, Far Apart, Houndmouth. They're those guys who are like, hey, little Hollywood. They're okay. Nothing, again. Crippling Alcoholism, which is like, they're kind of like a sludgy shoegaze, like doom emo type of thing. Just all about being like a piece of shit, which is not a thing that I care that much about. Still pretty good. The Freqs, that's Freqs. They're like a hardcore kind of like sludge doom thing hybrid, where they have some fast songs like hardcore stuff, but they're also pretty heavy at other times and can also have slower, sludgier riffs, which is cool. More hardcore punk bands, Cooked, the Freqs, and LSD and the Search for God is like a shoegazy type of band that's more chill. Cryo Geyser is one that's like metal. Sap is like kind of a neo grunge metal type of band. They're pretty cool. The Beatles, Sparkle Horse again. Julia Stollow. Dystopia, which is like a band that's kind of been its back turned on it by fans because they're, they had some kind of immature songs back in the day, I guess. Other than that, we got Pine Grove, Fairies in Our House, sad alternative like slowcore type of things. Antonio Carlos Jobim, that's more what's it called? Latin jazz. What's it called? Fucking not salsa, flamenco. No, fuck, I forgot about it. But it's like soft Latin jazz. It's like elevator music kind of, but it's not quite that. Bossa Nova, that's what it is. Bush, Disembodied. They're like kind of screamo, emo metal. Dystopia again. Lantlos is like a progressive metal band. Pale Horse. Oven is like kind of a country alternative rock type of thing. More Bossa Nova, João Gilberto, new Interpol song, The Croaks, and I think we're back at the songs that I recommended last time. So that's kind of what I've been listening to. Make sure to read Owen Meany and only watch Field of Dreams if you can watch it for free, and then you can watch some really good actors make the best of a kind of a crappy story. All right, hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave a like or comment if something I said was too mean. I promise I won't be mean back to you on a public forum. I really, really pinky swear that. It's so cool. You can't see me crossing my fingers, but I mean, I'm not crossing my fingers. I pinky swear I won't be mean to you if you be mean to me. All right? Check it out on Blue Sky. Check it out on Mastodon, YouTube, and Instagram at OTNT Podcast. Thank you. Good night. I got to get going. Talk to you all later. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. It is 100% canon in A Prayer for Owen Meany that Owen Meany has a fucking massive cock. At least for his size. I'm not lying. It's literally described that way in the novel. for like a couple pages. Just another little John Irving special for you. Okay, that's it.